was gonna say, I'm like, I hope that worked, Sam. Somehow it like it clicked the wrong thing at first, and I need more coffee. That's real. So I'm gonna shut up and let you have a great interview. You've got a half hour.
All right, well, let's get into it. Hey, Jane,
All right.
thanks.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I'm not sure if you know, but whenever we have a special guest such as yourself, we do something we like to call the over the top intro, mainly because people like you are special and we want to give you your flowers while you're sitting in front of us. Is that cool?
I love it.
All right, well, let's get into it. My next guest is award-winning producer, director, and writer. You will know her from such projects as Meth Head, Crazy Bitches, Atlanta Undone, and what we are here to talk about today, Witchy Ways, that came just in time for Halloween, but in multiple film festivals near you. Jay Clark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Oh my goodness. Hey, I got a chance to watch this film over the weekend, and it was dope. I didn't honestly know what to expect. So I want to relay this first question to you. How did this idea for this film come about?
Well, it was kind of a weird journey. It started with my friend Maram Hassler, who plays Danny the Witch, just saying to me, "Hey, you know what? I just bought a camera, and I got this great DP, and I got this great producer. Let's make a movie." And, not thinking, I said, yeah, let's make a movie. And then I was like, oh no, I got to write something. I got to raise money. Like, what am I doing? And it was a little bit odd for me because normally I wait till I have a thought, something comes to me and I'm like, oh, I have to write about that. Like, that's something I have to write about. That's usually my way into a story. So this was harder because I didn't, it was just a spirit of wanting to work with this person, not anything grounded. And so I just finished Discovery of Witches and I was like, oh my God, I love witches. I'm gonna do a witch and then I'm gonna throw a ghost in there because why not? I don't know. And then there'll be a romance. So I don't know how that's gonna work, but I'm gonna put a romance in there too. And it started as this really, really dark movie about this couple. They buy a house. One of the girls is pregnant and the house has a ghost that eventually comes out, but it's a mean ghost. And then you find out that the person who owned the house prior to that was a witch and she had to sell but resents it. And so she's trying to take the house back. It's like it was this dark, weird thing, and it was really bad. And so I threw it out. I was like, I can't, this is not it. And I just started watching movies. I just watched every ghost movie I could find, every witch movie I could find. And I finally watched Practical Magic. And I remembered how much I loved that movie when it came out. And I loved the idea that the witches were just regular people trying to live their life. They didn't, they did happen to have some magical powers, but it wasn't the core of the story, really. The core of the story was how this sisterhood and how they managed to maneuver through life. And so I loved that practicality of it. And I'm sure a little bit of Witches of Eastwick bled in there somewhere, and the craft, I referenced the craft in the movie. And
Right.
but the Witches of East, but practical magic was the root. And then I started researching witches to learn how to write a spell. I was like, I gotta learn, maybe I'll find something online. And then I discovered a lot online. And then I discovered this whole world of everyday practical witches living today amongst us. And this community basically that's living kind of underground life. They don't necessarily tell you they're witch unless they think you're going to be nice about it, or
Okay.
understanding about it. And so like I kept finding that people I knew were witches and had never told me. It was really interesting. And I thought, well, if this is so pervasive, there's got to be something here. So I researched the heck out of it. So the witch in the movie is 100% everything I learned about today's witch and how they practice, what their practice is like, what their spirituality is like. Um, and I tried really hard to make sure that I was as accurate and truthful as possible because I felt like nobody had done it before and it was something fresh and interesting and real. So that
Right.
was that was sort of how I got into that aspect of things. And from there you borrow from your own life, right? So Eve is really me
Hmm.
discovering craft for the first time, but also me because my mother had Alzheimer's. And she did, like a lot of the aspects of the mother character, the way that Eve talks about her is a lot of my own personal stuff. So I informed Eve, and my research informed Danny, and yeah, that was my journey.
Okay, well, I'm glad you picked that up because this movie was inspired, like you said, practical magic and discovery of witches. How important was it for you to spin your own tale, but still give those nods to the original material? Like, I noticed how you, even in dialogue, how you made craft references or you made references to other films because of the, for lack of a better term, skepticism while she was talking, when Eve is talking to Danny.
Yeah.
So how is it to give those nods to those films, but also make your own story?
Well, I thought one of the reasons I latched onto this idea of really exploring an everyday, today's current self-identifying witch in the film is because I felt like it was a really fresh angle to the witch story. Like we always see these horrible, witches are either scary or they're unattractive or they're hyper attractive or they're on a vengeance tour or there's always like something dark about them. But my experience of meeting these women and men that I've met over the last couple of years is not that. And I thought, well, this is a fresh take, and for the witch community, a truthful take on who they are today and how they go through life. And so that sort of was like, I just felt like that was fresh and interesting and new. And that I could ground it in research, which I like to do. I like to ground my work in research because it gives another layer of truthfulness. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think that was my impetus to take it in this different direction. And I do reference, I don't know why I do it in Crazy Bitches too. Like I even think I did it in Meth Head, but I reference movies. I mean, because don't we all do that? Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm guilty of it.
movies,
I am extremely guilty of it in normal conversation.
exactly.
Yeah,
You could probably quote lines, I bet, from movies.
exactly. Like it's that weird art imitates life, life imitates art, but the only way I can best convey my point is to point to the movie I saw.
Yeah,
I get it. I totally understand.
yeah. I think it works, and everybody like if it's a big enough movie, people will know what you're referencing. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, when you have something like something that's planned, well, let me ask it this way because I'm wording my questions very, very carefully not to give out spoilers of this movie. So let me ask this way: you have both leads, Evie and Danny, who tangle through grief, love, and now you actually add magic in this. Was it easy to direct those actresses during those changes because they both take on different muscles?
That's true. That's really true. Some of it was, they always say start with a good script, right? If your script is strong, then that gives the blueprint to the actor in what direction they need to go. I also was in casting, both of these women fit their roles, you know, as human beings as much as they fit the roles as the character. Like they come to the characters with some of these essences already in place. So from a casting perspective, it's helpful to do that. Yeah, and I think then it's just a matter of like good actors knowing where to go with the script and being able to do quick adjustments as you see what's happening in front of you. Quick adjustments that shift in one way or another, how they're moving through the scene. Yeah, as those things together, I think have to work as a unit, starting with the script.
Okay. Well, I just kind of want to dig a little bit more into this, specifically Evie,
Mhm.
because since Evie is, well, you, is there, I mean, like, you said it,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
since she's essentially living your life experiences, do you have to be a little, are you a little harder on her? Like, no, I didn't do this. I went through this, I did this, you should do this.
No, you can't do that. And really, once I wrote it, um, I kind of throw all that away because it's really about the actor. Having said that, there's some things in the movie, like, her situation with her mom and how that and what happened with all of that, um, is not Diora's experience.
Right.
And so she was having a hard time attaching to it and understanding. So the mother has Alzheimer's and has passed away. It's not giving away anything to say that, really, but um uh and Diora has not had that experience of anybody in her life having Alzheimer's, and so we had some long conversations about how tragic it is and how hard it is to watch memory slip away, and
Right.
how hard it is not only on you but on the person experiencing it. And so we had some good conversations about that, which was helpful, I think, helpful to her in finding her truth so that she could actually convey where her character was. um and then there's other things that I just that she brought her own reality to, and that's just as good. It's one of the best parts about, like, when you write a script and then you bring the actors on. Sometimes your guidance is toward a mark, and
Right.
sometimes when you see what they're doing, you shift your mark and then just make sure that everything still stays going in the right direction. But what they're bringing is their own life experience, and that's as valuable and as truthful as anything else, more than anything else, really. So yeah, I mean, I can't, if I held too closely to how I would do something, or what the experience was like for me, or what I envisioned when I was writing it, then I would kill the actor. Like, you kill their spirit. You can't over dictate to an
Makes sense.
actor, unless they ask you to. I've had actors in the past that have actually asked me to give them a line reading because, for whatever reason, whatever I'm saying doesn't resonate. And then
Right.
they're like, just give me a line reading so I can hear what you meaning, what you want. So, like, I've had all kinds of actors, but for the most part, you don't, you know, they're giving you a gift and you want to honor the gift as best you can. And my job is really to nudge them in directions where I think it's important, and let them flow into their own spaces where it works and fits with the overall story, right?
Okay. Okay. Well, in this particular project, like, you pride yourself on this production being bare bones, independent, as production goes. And if the storytellers can't pivot, there's still, the tale's going told. Can you give me some examples of this with this particular project?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, God knows I want to make a movie with more money. I mean, I don't
Okay.
really, I don't want to live forever here. It is so hard we shot it in under 13 days, and with a lot of things that went wrong logistically um throughout the whole production. And one simple thing was that, Danny's power is it's not even a power. Like, she can't control it. When she is angry, she draws the storms. So the
Right.
storm clouds come in and the lightning comes in, and it's a reflection of her inner feelings. Um, and it turned out to be like the rainiest season we had had in a decade or something in Los Angeles. And I was just like, well, if it's raining when she hasn't asked it to rain, like, what do I do? Like, how do I handle that? I still need, I either rewrite the script so that isn't a power, and in which case, then what do I do?
Right.
What does happen? Or how do I incorporate this rain in a positive way? So I just, you go back and you do a little rewriting. And so you make sure that, at some point, it had been raining at a time when she was actually happy. She's getting the Eve's asking her out on a date, but it
Right. Right.
happens to be pouring outside. And but we hadn't shot the forest scene. So when we get to the forest, it's just adjusting the script to say, Diora says, oh, it looks like it's gonna rain. You're not gonna see much. And she's like, yeah, that's okay. I love the rain. So the rain becomes
Oh,
her friend, and in a way it enriched the story, because when she calls the storms in, it's not to hurt her. It's not even hurting anybody. It's just a reflection of how she feels. So if it's raining and she's feeling good, but she likes the rain, well, the rain is her friend, and it either comes in a dangerous way or it comes in a nurturing and healing way. And she's a green witch, so nurturing and healing is great for the plants, right?
Right.
So I just I just wrapped it up with a different way of approaching or ending a scene, or you know, um, yeah, just finding a way to embrace the rain when it wasn't supposed to be there. That's just like one example, but I spent a lot of time actually rewriting throughout the entire process. Um, just little things to make sure that it all still tied together every time something went wrong and we had to shoot something somewhere I didn't plan
Right.
because there was a mud puddle, like the whole downstairs area where we were parking the car and they were driving in and out had turned into a giant mud puddle. Like, I mean, you couldn't get in or out. And we had a car that had driven in and they couldn't get out. We couldn't get anybody to tow it out because it was like liability and blah, blah, blah. So it sat there during the time we were supposed to be shooting some things down there. So I had to think about, okay, can I reset this somewhere else? Could it have a different could we enter into a scene in a different way? And, one of the benefits is I edit my own work. So I can look forward and go, all right, let me think about this. Okay, if I do this, I can then tie it together in the edit room by this, this, and this. So
Okay.
yeah.
Were there something on the production where, of all your editing skills, you're just like, oh man, this is just now something we got to deal with. This is something that you couldn't necessarily maneuver around.
Let me think. Um, we were lucky that that wasn't the case. Or let me just say, a solution was found for every problem we encountered. We
Okay.
did encounter a lot of problems, but it's one of the skills that I bring from having made films at this budget level before
Mhm.
is that I'm used to kind of working on the fly and going, oh crap, this really sucks. Um, and some of it, like, if I said, like, truthfully, the one thing that I wish we could have done the way I had written it was that the climactic scene towards the end was supposed to be at night,
Ah,
and I've had in the past, I've had some horror people complain that like the kills during the day and kills at night are better, and like so I'm kind of cognizant of like some kind of rules that are around these types of genre films, but um and it would have been cooler. The candles would have glowed in a different way. And I
right.
wanted to have a fire in the fireplace, but my production designer was worried about lighting a fire because we were in Topanga Canyon, which is a fire zone. So, I had this whole moody, like fire burning in the fireplace, candles lit all around,
Yeah.
this whole groovy, scarier like moment. Um, and then they were supposed to go out and down. It was supposed to leave the house. It wasn't supposed to all take place in the house, but again, rain. And I couldn't have the actors running down the stairs because they were stone and they were slippery. So I was worried about somebody hurting themselves. And then the sun was going in and out. So sometimes it was raining, sometimes it was sunny. And when you shoot like that, you have no consistency. So
Makes
like,
sense.
right? So it was just like, okay, I can't have anything I wanted. I can't have it like that. So we're going to just try to make it as moody as possible. We're going to contain it in the house so that nobody gets hurt and there's no variation in the light outside. With just the one exception of the chief plank running downstairs to his car, which was great because it was moody and dark when we did that. And I was like, oh, this is what I wanted the whole thing to look like.
Uh,
But so like that, like those kinds of compromises you make on a short shoot, like there wasn't the luxury. I also Mark Price, who plays Robbie, he's a comic and he had a tour already set up and we were supposed to shoot all in December, but Miriam's dad had a heart attack and she had to fly back to Zurich
mhm.
3 days before we were supposed to start shooting. So I was like, go, we'll figure it out. We shot 4 days and then had to regroup and come back in January. Well, Mark's schedule in January was packed. I had him for 2 days, one of which got lost because the rains came. Topanga Canyon was closed down and nobody could come to shoot that day because there was no way into Topanga Canyon. So he pushed his schedule a little bit. So I got him for a day and a half instead of two. And I had to get him out during the daytime because he had to get on a plane. So
Right.
I didn't have a lot of flexibility that way either. Like I had an actor that just had to be shot out and go. So, you make those compromises, and, a little piece of me always like, I've done it before, and I always, feel sad that I didn't have it exactly the way I wanted it. But what are you going to do? You got to tell the story. You got to get the story told. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. That actually bleeds into my next question, where it
Okay.
says, what did you want the audience to take away from this film? Overall, warts and all, no one cooperating with you, nature not exactly on your side either, but what did you want the audience to take away from this film?
At the very, very, very heart of it, I want the audience to have fun. I want them to walk out with a smile. I want them to be glad they sat through the journey. And if along with that, they find some recognition in the characters in some way that gives them a better sense of themselves, or have had an experience like Evie's, and it maybe nurtures them a little bit to feel that somebody else has had the same experience and they can empathize. Like, all of those things are great. There's a thematic for me. Danny and Eve are both journeying through grief to release, and that journey is necessary in order for them to actually be together in the end. Like, for you to be a healthy, happy couple, you both have to be in a healthy, happy place. It's difficult otherwise,
Right.
and rarely works out. So, like, they have to work through their journeys, but their journeys are separate but identical. And I think a lot of people, particularly during COVID, I think people started realizing that maybe there's a better option for them. Make them,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they've been working in this particular field but haven't been happy for a number of years, but didn't know what to do about it, and then discovered in the space that was there, where there was nothing to do, that
Yeah.
maybe their love was this other thing. And since there's this opening, maybe I can explore it while there's a chance. I've had friends that have completely changed their lives that way. And I think then other people, have stuck to their path but wish they hadn't. Like, it's hard. You get on a route, and maybe you want to go, you get off the train, but you don't know how, and you're tied to your mortgage, or you're tied to your car payment, or whatever it is. Um, and so that's a great, that's part of the story. And so if that's helpful and people see themselves in that, that's great too. But ultimately, I really just wanted to bring something positive and joyful into the world, and I want people to have a good time when they watch the movie. Like, that's it. Just have a
Okay.
good time. Laugh if you feel like laughing, cry if you feel like crying. It's all there. It's there for you to, enjoy. Take it for what it's worth.
Well, that makes sense. And you've had a few screenings right before the film festival, because you have started on this whirlwind film festival circuit. How has the audience responses been to these screenings so far? Have you had someone laugh or cry or
Oh
something
yeah.
in the middle?
Oh yeah, it's really fun to sit through, because there's been real laugh out loud moments. It's I have had, like, Crazy Bitches was similar in that way, that there were some sad, quieter places, and then there was a lot of humor, lot of humor in Crazy Bitches. But you start seeing a pattern where people, like, okay, I know that's working, because every time I sit through a screening, people laugh here, people laugh here. So it had some very consistent laughs. I've had a lot of people that later have told me that, a particular scene moved them. Um, and uh, because you can't, that's harder to tell that that's happening with an audience. Unless it's like method, because with method, I used to hear people sniffling. You'd hear people, and someone occasionally would blow their nose, so you knew you were getting to them. But if you're just moving people, it's kind of hard to tell unless they tell you that's what happened. But that's been happening a lot. People have been kind of, responding to the love story, and in a very positive way, just feeling like it's just a beautiful, two people coming together, finding love out of their pain. And um, that's been received really well. But I think the overall sort of feeling has just been, that there's a little bit of something for everybody in it. And that, that there's this mix of genres that's kind of fresh and new. And there's a storyline that's fresh and new with the witch aspect of it. And even the fact that the women aren't 25, it's just it's just a different point of departure really for a movie like this. And I think that overall people are feeling like it's fresh and different and therefore, keeps their attention and does mean that they walk out smiling at the end, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and that's pretty good. So I know you still got a few more screenings left. With that, so I hope more of that happens. And I'm curious, and this is just my own. I asked a bunch of questions from my audience. This is for me.
Okay.
As a creative mind yourself, when you're in those screenings, is there a part of you that grabs that pen and pad? It's like, I really should have done this instead of this, where you start playing it back in your head? Does that come up, or is it just me?
No, normally I would say yes. Normally, I mean, everything I've ever done, I have a moment where I may cringe or wish I had a redo, or I wish I had a little more money, like I would just had a little bit more money to do that the way I really want to. And certainly with Witchy Ways, we're really tight financially, but it's the first film where I feel very complete. But I will tell you that the reason I think that that is true is because I thought it was going to be finished this time last year. And things kept happening to delay the film, delay my post-production pieces finishing up. And every delay, I went back in and did more work. Like I was locked and then I wasn't locked, and I was locked and then I wasn't locked. And my poor sound guy's like, Jane, but I was like, I don't know. I just like, do you want me to not make it better? I got to make it better. If I see something I can make better. So I had a year with each aspect of my film to go, well, then while I'm looking at this VFX, God, the timing on this is bad. Maybe I should just adjust this edit a little.
Mhm.
Like all the way through, or just like doing something like doing the visual effects, then highlighted something else that before they were finished I couldn't see, but when they were finished I did. It's so I think I benefited from this strange year-long delay, because all those things I probably would have cringed at that I have in other movies,
Mhm.
I had time, more than enough time to address. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you gotta love those happy accidents. One of my favorite filmmakers, Kevin Smith, when he was
Yeah.
making Clerks, I'm sure you're familiar. Um, he had to make the movie. Long story short, he had to make the movie in black and white because there were weird lighting effects. Using fluorescent lights gave this like green glow. So he put it in black and white. There's no green glow. The story went the way it went.
Mm.
And at one of his screenings, one of his first screenings, one of film critic was just like, "Oh, I totally understand why he did this in black and white because it looks like it's coming from the store surveillance cam." And he was just like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's how it was. Yeah, that was my thought originally."
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I would imagine from what you just said, that was one of those happy accidents where you're sitting on this for a year, but you're like, hey, maybe if I
Yeah.
you don't want to pull too far on the thread, but there are some things where you just, well, I got time, and here
Got
we are.
time. Yeah, exactly. The only rule I had, the only thing I couldn't do was change the timeline. Like, so, because my sound had already, like, he finished way before everybody else. He was ready, like October of last year, he was ready to go. We were just waiting on score. So once his soundtrack was set and clean, all the dialogue and everything, I couldn't change. I had whatever changes I made had to be within the scene lengths, so that
Okay.
if I was jumping from an interior to an exterior, I had to do it at the same point because the sound would change from interior sound to exterior, right? The
Yeah.
FX sound. So like that was the rule I set for myself. But within those structures, a lot of stuff shifted and moved, and it still made a lot of work, extra work for him. Plus, I went back and I did a lot of sound effects. So like every time I went back, I was like, I think we really, this is missing something right here. Could we just put this in? So he's Jane. I have more sound effects tracks, like, because he drops each one I gave him in. They're dropped in so he can find it if he ever needs to go back, like something's
Right.
missing. So they're all in there. He's like, this is the most tracks I've ever had on a movie, because I kept coming with more. Like, I got one more just pass. And So it's like that stuff. But yeah, I did do a lot of restructuring, and then also the VFX changed as time went by, and I had to move from one person to another in a way, because of other people's time. You don't have a lot of money. You can only get so much from somebody.
I understand.
Um, so it evolved, and I literally just put new effects in that I got like a week and a half ago.
Mm.
I think in the copy you saw has the final, but I was
I
like,
would
what?
not have known if you didn't say anything.
Yeah, okay, good. Because even now there's like, oh, I might go back and have this redone.
Leave
Yeah,
it.
but nobody
Leave it
knows it.
alone. Leave it alone.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry I put the
know.
idea in your head. Leave it
I
alone.
know, that's the truth. That's like my husband says all the time. He's like, you have to stop. You have to stop some point. I'm like, I know. Just this one last thing.
Well, Jane, speaking of one last thing, I think that was my last question. This
All
half
right.
hour just flew right past. I wish you all the best with this project, and you're welcome back to the podcast whenever you want.
I would love it. I've got to get on that next movie.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jane, and have a great one.
Thank you, you too.
All right. Bye.
Okay.